down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown.
Good evening. You are listening to the Fumblerooski podcast by Power 88 Dean Radio and Secret Weapon Consulting. Hello, everybody. I'm Chris Kostic. Alongside me, Adam Wright and CJ Madero says we got a good lineup for you here, as we'll be talking about the Pats getting their butts kicked 38-3, worst loss in Bill Belichick's career. Texans beating the Steelers. CJ Stroud, potential offensive rookie of the year. We'll also be talking about our week 4 top 3, bottom 3, as well as the Toilet Bowl. Broncos coming back to win 31-28 after being down 28-7 versus the Bears. And of course, our Fumblerooski fan box. And I'm going to be listing out you guys' suggestions of who was the MVP through the first 4 weeks of the 2023 season. Man, I guess we'll just start right into it. Pats, Cowboys. I'm sick right now. I don't know if anyone could tell. I have the common cold. I'm gonna blame this on the Patriots, making me sick right now. But I also wanted to use this time to lead into the trivia for this week. So, seeing that this was the worst loss of Bill Belichick's head coaching career, the 35-point loss, Adam and CJ, I was gonna have you guys try to guess the 5 previous times before that, basically. So
that they were blown out?
Yeah, the 5 worst losses prior to that.
Wait a minute. Wait, is this loss with New England or just loss of his coaching career? Because if you're throwing BS from Cleveland at us, that's not fair. I tell you what.
Well,
to be fair, those were the Ravens.
Oh, well, back in the day.
Well, we're going with Belichick's coaching career, but the top 5 are all from the Patriots anyways, so
I'll allow it.
It doesn't really matter. So your hints, I'm going to give you the years. A couple of these should be pretty easy. 2003, 2022, 2020, 2020, and 2014.
Just out of curiosity, was that 2003 one against the Bills?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, wait, wasn't that like week 1 where they got pile-driven after letting Lawyer Malloy walk, and then they won the Super Bowl? My dad always told me about that one.
31-0. Bills beat the Pats week 1. Like you said, the Pats let Lawyer Malloy go like the Tuesday of that week, I think it was. And then the Bills came back to New England week 17, and the Pats gave them their medicine right back, 31-0 in that game too. But, yeah, so there's that one. So that was the top one. So you guys still got 4 more.
Wait, what was the other year?
We got 2022, 2002 from 2020, and 1 from 2014.
Two from
2014. That was week 4 against the
Chiefs.
Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep.
That was the infamous Trent Dilfer, the Patriots aren't good anymore game. They're weak. Went on to win.
Then we were on to Cincinnati, and everything was fine.
What a season.
Business as usual, man.
All right, so there's 2.
What was the score of that game, though? Do you remember? Because I'm completely blanking.
40-something to 17.
41 to 14.
41 to what now? 41-14?
14. Yep.
Jesus, that was bad. And one of those 2 touchdowns wasn't even Brady. That was Garoppolo. So they were thinking that Brady wouldn't even finish the season, that Garoppolo was going to take over.
Oh, hold on. I think I remember one of the 2020 ones. Was that the one against the Niners?
Yep. That was,
if
I remember
we
correctly.
got violated in that one. Peeved me.
I think that was a Sunday night game too. That was a 33-6 whomping.
Yeah, I remember we were pimp smacked a few times. Oh, the Rams gave us the business. Dolphins at one point gave. Oh, wait. I feel like that was the year we lost 38-9 to Buffalo, though. Or was that 2021?
Say that again.
There was one year where we lost to Buffalo. Was that 2020 where there was like something like 39-8, 38-9?
Yeah, it was like 38-9 right on the button. That was the day before my birthday, actually. December 28th, 2020. That was a great birthday present. So you got one more. This one is honestly kind of an easy one.
You said 2013, was it?
2022.
Oh,
2022.
Oh, I know. Well, we got the other one. Yeah, 2022. Oh.
Ooh, was it the game against? Are we counting playoffs?
Yes, we are.
Then yeah, it's the division, the wild card game against the Bills. That was a real poor game.
Yeah, I was at that game with some of my buddies, and that was just.
I do remember. Yeah, you mentioned that. You're like, I'm going to this game. I was so jealous until I wasn't. I'm like, oof.
Yeah.
Cold over there. You're losing big. Must have been still a fun time, but.
Oh yeah, I honestly didn't even care that it was negative 10 degrees. It with the wind chill, it was negative 10 degrees, and I was so bundled up. Like the beer was literally just beer slushies. I remember we bought a 12-pack or 24-pack of the Sam Adams tailgating pack, and it's like all the football flavors, their limited edition, whatever. And I actually broke the bottle trying to open it up because of how cold it was.
And how was Bill's Mafia, the tailgate?
That was fun.
Up to the hype?
Yeah. It lived up to the hype. We saw 2-3 people go through tables.
Oh, that's awesome. I want to witness that. I don't know how it would go down as a visiting fan, but.
Well, the guy next to me was kind of being a jerk. I was trying to be boys with him, even though he's a Bills fan. But like, there was a couple that was right in front of us that was really cool. They were talking about how they were there for the Bills comeback against the Oilers in 1992, I think it was.
Oh, jeez.
Whatever year that was, when they were down 35-3, or whatever the score was. That is historic game. Anyways, we digress. We'll move away from trivia. We'll just go right back to what we started with. Cowboys embarrassed the Pats 38-3. Mac Jones, 2 picks, less than 200. I think it was 150 something yards. Got pulled in the fourth quarter. I was at a restaurant with my girlfriend in Boston for this one, and I didn't watch a single second of the second half. Watched the first time that Mac Jones threw that ball across the middle of the field, I kind of just knew it was going to be a long day. The one before the pick, that's just rookie mistakes. But I'll leave it to you too. CJ, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. If you're the Patriots, where do you even go? Because Mac Jones at this point is kind of an anomaly. When he's playing lights out, you don't win. When he's playing horrifically, you don't win. Like, I don't get it. Also, if I recall correctly, I remember seeing something that of Mac Jones's 3 statistical best games, we're 1-2 in those games. Like, and I want to say we're either like 2-3 or 1-4 in like his top 5 best games. So even when he's playing well, we're not winning. When he's playing poorly, we're not winning. And it's just, I was shocked. There is just no life. And once again, we're looking at, this is the same thing that happened last season. These stupid slip-ups, silly mistakes, continually shooting yourself in the foot. Teams aren't even beating New England. New England's beating themselves. And that's how it was. I mean, I remember watching that game against the Jets, and you could only eke 15 points out of that. I mean, granted, the Jets have a good defense, but good God, that's painful. And this comes on the heels of an offseason where you went out and you got Juju. You went out and you got Gesicki. And I mean, I'll grant you, Juju's not a number 1, but still it was something. I mean, granted, it was reported that Bill Belichick had to be dragged kicking and screaming to make those moves because Kraft threatened him to make it, to at least show some signs of life in the offseason. Otherwise, he'd be fired. But I don't know. As somebody who's a Mac apologist, I just don't know. And look, I'll grant you the Cowboys were good, but good enough to beat you by 35. That's just... And of course, I just want to point out all the Zappy fans need to sit down because Zappy was terrible as well. Didn't even have a completion percentage above 50%. He went 4 for 9. Let that sink in. And when I look at it, it's the question, that I open with. Where do we go from here? Judon, he's hurt, tore his bicep. I heard out for a minimum 6 weeks. You're not going to be competitive. It's just, you're mediocre. Shut him down. And I hate to say it, but we just need to shut Judon down for the rest of the year. Because why would you bring him back? The Patriots are just this frustrating amalgamation of not having the roster to compete, but not being poor enough to outright tank. And honestly, I wouldn't be against tanking, because if you really think Mac is a bust and you don't like your ROI, tank, get Caleb Williams, get Drake May, get somebody. Or if you like him, Mac, tank and grab that Penn State offensive tackle Fashanu, or hopefully Marvin Harrison Jr. But this isn't sustainable. And I know I've been going on, but I just want to say one thing more.
You're running out of things for me to say.
I'm forgiven. Believe me, you're forgiven. But here's my big takeaway. Some blame has to be laid at Belichick's feet. And I know the old head Patriots are, they're repulsed by this comment, but it's true. They'll say, oh, but Bill can only coach him so far. It's the players. It's the players' fault. Well, here's the thing about the players. Let me tell you. Who put this team together? Who's the GM? If Bill does not like the state of the roster, he has himself to blame. You did not do enough to address receiver. You did not do enough to address the offensive line. So yeah, this is your fault. And don't say that trading for Vidarian Lowe and Tyrone Wheatley count as moves. Signing Riley Reef, who so far has been injured, that's not a move yet. And Juju, that is not working out well. Gesicki's been okay. But I can't. And then even still, you could say, well, the other coaches aren't good. Once again, who puts these other coaches on the roster? And look, you had me excited that we got Bill O'Brien back. And now, I don't know if you've heard, but there is already whispers Bill O'Brien's on his way out at the end of this year. He might go take a head coaching job at like Michigan or Michigan State. Or did any of you hear that?
I actually have not.
Have not heard that. Are you typing it right now?
Yeah, I am. I want to see. Yeah.
It's funny.
So, yeah, he's one of like the big candidates for the Michigan State head coaching vacancy. So he could already be on his way out.
And I wouldn't blame him at this point.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't either.
Yeah.
You either go out, as Adam likes to say, spend through your face in free agency because you're going to have the first or second most cap space. You could have well over $85 million. Go out, get some players, make a blockbuster trade for a star receiver, or have a fire sale and tank. No more mediocrity. And if that means, just stripping everything down, bringing in a new regime with probably led by Gerard Mayo, then so be it. But things can't continue. The fans know it. Kraft knows it, and he never tipped his hand at it, but I think Bill knows it too.
Okay. Finally my turn. All right, here we go. Listen, I would like to look at this in a different angle. Not just on the Patriots, but what will become of Bill Belichick if they were to revoke him of his GM rights. CJ makes this point all the time. He's probably going to quit as a head coach out of spite too. And there's going to be no shortage of teams that will want him on their team. And that's another thing to look at, right? They could improve their team all they want. They could switch their regime, but Belichick is going to find a new home. And you better hope it's not close to yours. Because if he gets his hands on Justin Herbert in that whole operation going down over in LA, holy crap, is that going to be a problem? And like there's other spots he could go to. I mean, what if the Miami decides they want to move on from McDaniel and they go to Bill Belichick with that defense over there, with that offensive operation? I'm just saying, like Bill's time may be up here, but if you give him a clean slate and some better talent, then he's going to do pretty well. Because we saw how he was with Brady. Give him Justin Herbert. Give him Tua. Give him Name the team that has the quarterback but no coaching. He'll turn that operation around in a second. So that's just one way I wanted to look at it, because I've been thinking about it. I'm like, when things were really good in New England with Belichick, it was great. So, he loses his star quarterback. He's been struggling since then. If he goes to a new team with another star quarterback, things are going to be just as good as they were in New England. Jesus, let me scrap that for a second. Not just as good, because you're not going to win 6 Super Bowls with anybody, but it'll be still really good. You get Justin Herbert, you may just win a Super Bowl or 2.
Sorry,
that's the point I just wanted to make, because I don't think anybody, CJ, you're also muted. That's just a point I wanted to make, because everyone's talking about, well, Bill needs to be out. Okay. Well, what then? And then everyone talks about New England. What about Belichick? Do you think he's just going to retire? No, he wants the coaching record, and he also might want to take some Super Bowls with him. Just saying.
Yeah, especially since, back in 2007, Don Shula ripped the Patriots after Spygate happened. And that Bill Belichick has that grudge against Don Shula because of it, and he wants that coaching record more than anything now. But, you're at the point where you're looking at Belichick and his record prior to getting to New England, and especially that first year in New England, losing record, and his record without Brady hasn't really been great, to say the least. And now you come into this year, you think it, I didn't think that it was going to be a Super Bowl year by any means, but this was definitely supposed to be at the very least an improvement year.
Yeah.
And we thought, and through the first 3 weeks, at least the first 2 weeks, we thought that we were going to get the old Mac back. Mac had a pretty solid week 1. Granted, the problem is he's kind of regressed since then. And we thought that since Bill O'Brien's in town, it's going to be a lot different. Going to see a more explosive offense, going to actually take some chances with how good of an offensive mind Bill O'Brien is, or used to be at this point. But we're now at the point where we kind of seem to be in the same problem as last year, where the coaching has, play calling, coaching has once again kind of just been thrown out the window. Not a lot of great play calls. We're not being aggressive enough on offense. And now on top of that, too, you got the defensive injuries to Judon. Judon's probably going to be out for the year. Gonzalez is probably going to be out for the year. You got bums like Miles Bryant having to cover CeeDee Lamb. Jonathan Jones is still out. It's starting to be that dumpster fire. And like you guys said, it's probably we're not going to see this team tank. Now, here's a question I want to pose to you guys. Depending on where this team is come the trade deadline, could we possibly see a move at the trade deadline, potentially, depending on how the team's doing? If the team's still in a playoff spot, do we see the Pats make a move at the trade deadline? Or if it's just clear we're not going to get anywhere, we start unloading?
The problem is this isn't the MLB trade deadline where you trade away your star players or even just average level starters, and you can get a king's ransom. In the NFL, it's honestly quite the opposite, where you trade your star player, you might just get like a 3rd or 4th round pick. Unless you're the Bears, who got 2 first-round picks for Khalil Mack. That was cool. Or
that's what I mean, though. The
Cowboys who traded. So you want to give away like Judon?
No, not necessarily. But what I'm saying is, you got a lot of these teams that have great picks. Maybe we see something at the depth. Maybe we do trade Judon. I'd rather us not trade Judon, but
that might be the only guy who fetches a 1st-round pick. That's my only problem.
Exactly. That's the only problem. And we're already wasting 1st-round picks on defensive players when we could be using it potentially on, say, Marvin Harrison Jr., name that we just brought up, or another great receiver. We could have, Adam, you brought this up plenty of times. We could have used that pick on Smith and Jigba. Can't say his name, but
Of course, if you drafted him, he would have gotten hurt, or he probably would have shut him down for the whole season. But it's whatever.
He already did get hurt, by the way, and also he's looking more and more like the worst wide receiver in that draft. But he has time. He has time. I still believe in him. But Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, those are two wide receivers who've been doing really well. They could have gotten them. And there's some second and third round picks who they could have gotten too, who are doing pretty well. Puka Nacua as well. Where was he drafted? He was drafted?
But I was about to say 4th or 5th. He didn't play at all last year at BYU because he had an injury.
He's on pace to have an unbelievable year. 500 yards a quarter of the way through the season. You're halfway to 1,000 yards. More than halfway. He is 501. Holy crap.
He's broken all of Anquan Bolden's.
Notice how some of the biggest I'm sorry, Chris. Notice how some of the craziest seasons you have seen from a wide receiver have come from the same guy throwing to him. Starting to see a trend here. Just saying. Yeah. Cooper Kupp, Calvin Johnson, now Puka Nacua.
And it's crazy too because we're seeing Stafford as like a guy that's on the downslope right now if we're considering like stat wise, but he's still getting it to playmakers. That's the thing. And that's sometimes all you got to do as a quarterback. If you can still get it to your guys, then you don't need to get rid of your 35-year-old quarterback or however old Matt Stafford is right now.
Yeah. I think his yards are still there, but the touchdown to interception ratio is a joke. 3 to 5.
Yeah. That's the only issue, really.
Yeah.
He's still producing. Yeah. So we'll move on. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about Texans and the Steelers here on the Fumblerooski podcast.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. It's caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Swings it way down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown!
Welcome back to the Fumblerooski podcast. Chris Kostic, Adam Wright, CJ Medeiros. As Texans, another upset this week, if we want to call it that. Granted how bad the Steelers have been playing, but definitely not what anyone was expecting, to say the least. Texans just routing the Steelers 30-6. Kenny Pickett went down with an injury in the third quarter. See how long he's out, maybe a week or so. But really the story here is CJ Stroud. Man, he is something else right now. So here's a stat real quick before we really get into it. CJ Stroud is now only the 6th player in NFL history to average 300 passing yards and have 0 interceptions through the first 4 games of the season. The other 5, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Patrick Mahomes, and Aaron Rodgers. So
some good company.
Very, very good company. So I think it's safe to say that CJ Stroud is definitely the top candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he may very well be the favorite just based off the publicity that he is getting for turning around this Texans team. And honestly, they're looking a little bit like a competitive team right now. I don't know if it's too early to tell, but what I can tell you is I don't think Stroud should be the Offensive Rookie of the Year. And I'll tell you why. Bijan Robinson is low-key having a better season. Bijan Robinson's having an incredible season. And yes, for a rookie quarterback, CJ Stroud, he's shattering records right now. But for just a quarterback in the league, not quite as good as you might think. So yeah, I think CJ Stroud's going to be an incredible quarterback, but Bijan Robinson, relative to the rest of the league, is one of the best running backs right now. But I do really like Stroud. I love me some CJ Stroud right now. He'd make a great Patriot, I'll tell you that much.
He'd make a great Patriot. I would agree with that. CJ, want to talk about your other CJ?
Now, as you know, back during the draft, I was a CJ Stroud enthusiast. This is why. See, Adam's already looking at me like, no. Was I not a big CJ Stroud enthusiast?
I've just had it up to here with you and your draft day BS.
I did.
I
was right.
Golf clap. Is this what you wanted, CJ?
A little bit, yeah. Thank you. You're very generous. Now here's the thing with CJ Stroud. You know, you gotta look at who the Texans have played thus far. And I gotta admit, I mean, it's been good as far as CJ Stroud goes. I mean, let's really take a look at this. So you go out, you get smacked by the Ravens. Well, that was to be expected. Colts beat you, you know, but everyone knows the Colts have a better roster. But then you turn it around with a statement win over your division rival Jaguars. And then you turn around, you put the hurt on Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh with an elite defense and it was getting a lot of hype this offseason because, no, come hell or high water, Mike Tomlin will drag this team to above 500. Well, I don't see it that way. And it's that CJ Stroud, what's truly impressive, doesn't have a wide receiver one. You know that? I mean, really think about it. Nico Collins, I guess. I think he's probably been their best receiver, but when I say, Nico Collins, I mean, what? Are you just going to say, oh, yes, truly a wide receiver one? No, but he's their leading receiver at 428 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. And then there's also the rookie Tank Dell, who has 267 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tight end Dalton Schultz only has 89 yards, but a touchdown, and wide receiver Robert Woods with 191 yards. These guys, he's just doing it with a bunch of, guys who aren't even, some would say, especially with Nico Collins, he's a low-end number 2, and yet he's on pace to have his best season ever. Can you imagine how dangerous CJ Stroud would be with a true number 1? We've said this numerous times on the Fumblerooski podcast, that when you've got a young quarterback who's struggling, you give him a crutch and a wide receiver 1. You know, Josh Allen sucked, but you know why he doesn't suck anymore? He has a crutch. Stephon Diggs. You know, Tua has Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Jalen Hurts has A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But here's the thing. CJ Stroud out of the gate is playing well. So what happens if you give him a true wide receiver 1? His game's just going to extend that much farther.
Let me ask you this, CJ. I'm sorry. Were you still finishing with your point, or?
No. I was about to. At that point, it was basically over. Yeah.
Okay. Let me ask you this: are you familiar with Tank Dell?
No. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm familiar with Tank Dell. Yeah, he's a second rounder.
So
I mentioned him, I believe. Yeah, like I said, Tank Dell, 267 yards, 2 touchdowns.
16 receptions, 267 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's on pace for over 1,100 yards, almost 1,200 yards, and 9 touchdowns. So, if they have
maybe he could develop into a wide
then,
receiver 1. Maybe unless you develop him, then yeah. But.
Yeah. So what I'm saying, what if this guy is their wide receiver 1, and they also just found a diamond in the rough wide receiver who is now their clutch for CJ Stroud already?
Well, then it's a happy accident. And then
put it that way.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Now the Houston Texans are good. That's all. That's great. We've mentioned this, but I think we need to turn the cannons now on the Steelers.
Yeah, that's
Kenny
what I was
Pickett is not that guy. This is just the undisputable fact. I was never, very big on the Kenny Pickett hype, but he's been passable at best. The 60% completion percentage, 803 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4 picks, overall passer rating of 76.3. And the Steelers' offense isn't that bad. I mean, you've got Najee Harris at running back. You've got plenty of weapons to throw to. Deontay Johnson, yeah, I know he got hurt. Give me a break. And you've also got George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth. Especially since George Pickens could very well be, a budding wide receiver one. Of course, maybe not with Kenny Pickett, but I don't know. Pittsburgh just might be a quarterback away. And I don't know. I'm not a Kenny Pickett fan. And I just want to point out, this offseason I mentioned when everyone was hyping up the Steelers, I said, on paper, it looks fine. But in real life, they have a hindrance. And that hindrance name is offensive coordinator Matt Canada. Pittsburgh Steelers fans, you already know this, but I'm going to say it anyway. You will not do anything, and Pickett will not progress. Maybe he could be the guy, could be wrong, but Kenny Pickett will not progress until you get rid of Matt Canada. And the worst part is, I don't think Mike Tomlin really wants to. In fact,
I think that sucks about the. Sorry, CJ, you can finish.
I was just saying, and what's worse is that he knows the fans want Canada gone, and he's not doing anything about it. In fact, have you seen him be asked about? If anything, he's kind of thumbing his nose at the fans, saying, "Oh, well, too bad." And genuinely, no matter how bad the Pittsburgh offense is, I wouldn't be shocked if Matt Canada was back next year. But that's just me.
That's the thing that sucks about the Steelers. It's the Steelers hate change, especially when you look at the Steelers historically. Even like their head coaches, they've only been through 3 head coaches in the last 50 years: Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. They're not a fan of change, and that's probably what's going to end up being the downfall. And maybe in a godsend for Steelers fans, Matt Canada gets fired halfway through the season, but it probably won't happen, which sucks for them, because since Matt Canada has taken over as the offensive coordinator back in 2020 or whenever he took over, they have yet to put up a 400-yard game as total as an offense.
Oof. I didn't realize.
And every other team in the league has done it at least 3 times.
Jesus. That makes Patricia look good.
Literally. Like, I just can't believe that he's still around. You have 4 straight seasons where you don't put up over 400 yards as a total offense, and you still have him around? What is this? What are we doing? What are you doing, Pittsburgh? It's basically the same thing as New England at this point. Swallow your pride and get rid of the man. Who cares if you're changing stuff up? Just do it. Just do it. Your offense will. If Mike Tomlin was calling the plays, they would have a 400-yard game, or at least come close to it. I swear. If Mike Tomlin was to take over play calling duties, and they kick Matt Canada out tomorrow, they will. Who are even they playing next week? I don't even know who they're playing next week. They're playing. Hold up.
I'll find it for you. You can keep talking.
They're playing. Okay, but
next week. Okay.
They're playing the Ravens.
Ravens. Yeah, that's. Oof.
They probably won't put up 400 yards, but damn, the offense will look so much better without Canada against the Ravens, especially with how beat up they are. It's unreal. It's unreal. And, we can get into if Kenny Pickett's the guy. I'm with CJ. I've never really been a Pickett guy. But, damn, man, it's like the same thing with Mac. You got to give him a chance with somebody, and Kenny Pickett's not going to get a fair chance unless they get rid of this guy. That's my
were you finished?
Yeah, I'm finished.
I also wonder if like 2 things can also be true at once, right? This is something that I used to say about Mac Jones and Matt Patricia. Like, yes, Matt Patricia was a terrible, terrible offensive coordinator, had no business doing it. But I also think we had a right to be skeptical about Mac Jones. And look at what CJ Stroud right now is doing over on the Texans. Not a very desirable situation. Their coaching might be a little better, but he's still making the most of the situation he's in. We know that it really does look like he's the guy. With Mac Jones and Kenny Pickett in not favorable situations, they still look a little iffy. Like, yes, they show some flashes in the same way that the Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescotts in the world show flashes. But is that the end goal? Do we want those guys who are kind of middling, they're really, really good when they have good talent, but in the not so desirable situations? I mean, we saw what Joe Burrow did in 2021, one of the worst offensive lines in all of football, and they still went to the Super Bowl. So he's the guy. The very next year, Patrick Mahomes, one of the worst wide receiving cores in all of football, won the Super Bowl, won league MVP, won Super Bowl MVP. We can clearly tell that he's the guy. So this is the thing about quarterbacks. They are guys who make the most of unfavorable situations, because it's not going. There's so many moving parts on an NFL roster. It's not always going to be perfect. There's going to be some weaknesses that you have to overcome. Not everything is going to be perfect. So I think that's something we need to look at with Pickett and Mac Jones. I do.
CJ, anything else to add? All right, we'll move on. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we will have our top three, bottom three for this past week, week 4. You're on the Fumblerooski podcast.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. This is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Swings it way down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown.
Welcome back to the Fumblerooski podcast. Chris Kostic, Adam Wright, CJ Medeiros as top 3, bottom 3 for week 4. We did top 5, bottom 5 last week. I decided to shrink it down to just 3, but we will have 2 honorable mentions. Adam and CJ, I'm just going to list these off. You guys say if you disagree, agree, add, keep, yada, yada. So we'll start with the top. Texans, Commanders, Ravens, honorable mentions, the Jets, and the Titans. What do you guys think?
Okay. CJ, you go first.
I really like the addition of the Titans. I really do. And a lot of people sometimes, they tend to forget about the Titans. And I'm with that. I am. I'm not going to pretend that I don't understand why. But let's really look at this. Look who they just beat. The Bengals, who were they not supposed to be our Super Bowl champs this season? Was Joe Burrow not supposed to be our MVP this season? Yeah. Now, I don't know if that says more about how much of a train wreck the Bengals have been, but the Titans, they have some fight in them. And not just some fight, they pantsed the Bengals and made them walk across the field on national television. So, yeah, I just want to say great job adding the Titans. Very underrated performance, and Derrick Henry's fantasy performance will prove it.
The Jets should be number 1. Zach Wilson put the league on notice. And I think, this guy made a deal with the devil. Talk about a guy who you expected one thing and you got another. Unbelievable the way he played. And a lot of people argue that they would have straight up beaten the Chiefs if it weren't for a couple of calls that went another way. Right? So I gotta put the Jets number 1. I like the Ravens. I'm never going to bash a team for beating a team that they should beat. But I'm also not going to credit you for it, if that makes sense. So I think they should slide it. The Jets should slide in number 1, Texans 2, Commanders 3. That's my top 3.
I will say when I made the list, when I make these lists, I kind of just do it at random. There's no specific order to them. Obviously, it does seem that there's a specific order, but there really isn't. But so yeah, Houston. I thought that considering the win that they had last week, it was a good follow up. Beat the crap out of the Steelers. Washington, great bounce. Even though they lost in OT, great bounce back week. Sam Howell had a really good week after a really bad performance against Buffalo. Baltimore, great bounce back week after losing overtime to the Colts. And to counterpoint what you said for the Ravens, I think that, sure, we probably could have expected them to beat the Browns, but they also beat the Browns handily for a team that has shown a pretty solid defense, to say the least, in my opinion. But I digress. Jets, I agree with everything you guys just said. The Titans, I agree with everything that CJ just said. With that being said, for the bottom three, I got the Bears for blowing that 28-7 lead. Patriots, you're just talking about them. The Steelers for, yeah, it's just the Steelers. The Bengals for losing to the Titans so badly. And the Dolphins. I threw the Dolphins in here because Dolphins, that should have been a game, and they got their ass handed to them. But that's just me.
Okay. Bengals should be 100% on this list. I don't think they should be an honorable mention. You talk about a team that was supposed to win the Super Bowl, win your quarterback, win league MVP, your top wide receiver, win offensive player of the year, all of that. I mean, this team was supposed to light it up, and you got pantsed by the Titans and Ryan Tannehill. Holy crap! Like that deserves to be number one. And I'm sorry. Listen, I know the Bears blew the lead. They blew a lead. But the fact that they had a big lead and that Justin Fields finally showed us a glimpse of what he was supposed to be this year, I think that does have some value for the Bears. I probably would have put them as an honorable mention.
Yeah, I think I did that as a typo by accident. So let me fix it up. So we'll do Bengals, Patriots, Steelers, and then the honorable mention Bears, Dolphins.
Yeah. You know something? The Dolphins are the only team that I feel really any shred of confidence going forward because their offense did show signs of life, but plain and simple, they just got outclassed by your big brother in Buffalo. Then the Patriots, we all knew, I mean, no one expected them to win, but Then there's Cincy. Like, what's your excuse for winning? For losing. You don't have one. And then Pittsburgh, you lost to Houston, and you were favored to win. That's just embarrassing. But overall, I would definitely call Cincy this week's biggest loser, and they're definitely bottom, especially of play style last week.
Another mention I probably could throw in there would maybe be the Giants from last night's Monday night game. Considering, I mean, the only reason why I didn't put the Giants on was it was kind of inevitable they were going to lose to the Seahawks because, A, you got Daniel Jones's 0-4 record on Monday night. He only has one win in prime time. I think he's 1-12 now in primetime games. And on top of that, the Seahawks sacked Daniel Jones 10 times. But, they didn't have Saquon. And the other problem was, too, they only had one extra lineman on the depth chart, basically. So their line, it's been the story since their Super Bowl win, the last Super Bowl win against the Pats was their O-line. So that would be another, I guess, honorable mention if we want to throw it in there. But that's my 3 and 2 for bottom.
I like it. There you go.
Yeah.
It's a good list. Besides,
all right,
but I like it.
Well, whatever.
It's a good list. I'm sorry. That sounded very, very passive aggressive.
It's okay.
We're all gonna agree and disagree on some things. I think Cincinnati is a good one at the top of the list. Chicago's a good honorable mention. It's a good one.
Yeah. So we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about the Broncos and the Bears game, the toilet bowl, after this break.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. This is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Swings it way down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown.
Welcome back to the Fumblerooski podcast. Chris Kostic, Adam Wright, CJ Medeiros. Move on to Broncos and their comeback win over the Bears, 31-28. Bears were down 28-7 in the third, and then were able to come back and win in overtime, 31-28. Russell Wilson, our guy Brett Schaubs would be loving this right now. I think it's time for the Russell Wilson hate to kind of simmer down a little bit. His stats: 21 for 28, 223 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. He had a 133.5 QB or rating for the day as well. 75% completion percentage. We want to look at him in the entirety of the season, by all means. 67% completion percentage. He's cracked 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and it kind of just seems like going to the Bears for a hot sec. It's just tank mode. I mean, Justin Fields still had a pretty solid day, but the Bears really just had themselves a first half type of game and then just fell apart in the second half.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of ways to look at this season for the Broncos, but for the Bears, I mean, this really was demoralizing because you had arguably your best half of football that you have had in almost a year, and you didn't even win the game. You were up 28-7 and you blew it. Now, that being said, I think there is a very, very, very straightforward path for this Bears team. They're projected to have the numbers 1 and 2 picks, and your quarterback just balled out. So yeah, maybe Justin Fields isn't the guy, but if he can string some more starts like this together, you could fool another team into believing that this guy could do well somewhere else. Next thing you know, maybe you don't get a first out of it, maybe a second or a third, maybe both, second and third. Then next thing you know, you have 2 seconds, 2 firsts, which happen to be the first and second picks in the draft, and you're in prime position for next offseason. And you can start over at the quarterback position with Caleb Williams.
CJ, before you go, I do want to throw these stat lines out, especially for Justin Fields, considering that Adam and I have been up Justin Fields' ass the last 2 weeks. 28 for 35, 335 yards, 4 touchdowns, an interception. DJ Moore, 8 catches, 131 yards, and 1 touchdown.
So the thing with Justin Fields, I'm not buying it. This was a flash in the pan, a fluke, if you will. And you have to remember the Broncos statistically have one of the worst defenses in the league. So I guess the real question is, am I supposed to be impressed by the fact you carved up the worst defense in the league? I mean, granted, that was a good game for Fields, but until you're doing it consistently, I'm not convinced, and I certainly don't care.
I definitely agree with that.
And the thing is with the Broncos, once again, wow, you got to win. Unfortunately, it was against the Bears, and the Bears are terrible. So, once again, keep it up. Both sides. I just want to say, Bears, you had the lead, you choked. I'm not convinced about you. But if Fields can keep it up, then maybe I'll be convinced. And you dropped something, I think.
Yeah, I accidentally just kind of just flip my Beats pod case off my desk.
Oh, believe me, I forgive you. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of Fields. And for the Broncos, once again, if you beat somebody who's not the Bears, then yeah. And I don't mean like a squeaker. I don't mean an ugly win. I mean a convincing win. Then yeah. Then sure, then you can have a seat at the grown-ups table. But until then, what did Kostic call it? He called it a toilet bowl, and rightfully so. I mean, you can't overreact to this. You really can't.
Yeah, it's kind of like two toddlers getting into a tickle fight. Like they may look good against each other, but when you sit at the adults table, then things are going to get real between them. But I think there's I think the situation is more interesting with the Broncos because if they keep losing these games, then what? Where is the issue here? Their defense on paper is really good. So where's the problem there?
There's your issue. The defense. It's Vance Joseph. Sorry for cutting you off, but Vance Joseph is basically Matt Canada, but on the defensive side. You want to know why Todd Bowles? You know what? I'm not even going to finish that question. I was going to ask, you want to know why Todd Bowles still has a job? I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you why Todd Bowles still has a job. It's the same thing as Vance Joseph. They're not good coaches. Todd Bowles, granted, he's doing fine with Baker right now, and Baker's doing a great job with Tampa Bay.
But how do you
holy
screw up Tom
Christ,
Brady? Yeah.
He screwed up Tom Brady's last year. Vance Joseph is best remembered for the Spanish Monday Night Football reporter screwing up his introduction on his first game as an NFL head coach.
Jeez,
and
call me uncultured, but is that
was,
the same guy?
That is the same guy.
Oh, yeah, no, that's the same guy. That's true.
Vance Joseph. And that Broncos team was awful. Awful.
And they let him be defensive coordinator. Just saying.
And here we are in 2023. Vance Joseph, the D coordinator, the same Vance Joseph that gave up 70 points last week to the Dolphins. The same Vance Joseph that allowed the Chicago Bears to get 28 points on your defense. The Chicago Bears should not be getting 28 points on your defense. That should not be happening. The Chicago Bears are terrible. That's all I
agree. I agree it shouldn't happen, but like 70 points on Patrick Surtain and company?
It's the defense here, man.
You had Simmons.
It's the coaching.
You still have Simmons. You have I mean, this defense, I mean, it's not elite, but it shouldn't be this bad.
No. And it's
once again, the Vance Joseph effect.
And also, granted,
sorry, Adam, you can finish.
All right, thank you. And also on offense, yes, statistically it has looked good, but if you give this the eye test, if you look at what's going on, Russell Wilson kind of disappears late in games. This past performance is an exception, but he's been building up some leads and losing them. Like they were 0-3 going into this game and very well on their way to going 0-4. So I don't want to give their offense a complete pass just yet. So like I just want to know why you can blame Vance Joseph for them being 2-2, right? Or just around 500. But to be 1-3 for you to be for a defensive coordinator to be the sole reason, especially when you have the personnel that you do. I mean, you have one of the best young corners in the game, and you got that kid lit up. I mean, I just feel like there's something seriously wrong with this team that goes deeper than the personnel and maybe even deeper than the coaching. Like, what the hell is going on? And you're about to have another top pick in this draft. They're top 5 right now. So, like, where do you go from here? You're supposed to be competitive, and you're not.
Oh, sorry, I thought I was muted.
No, and here's the thing too. I don't want to say it's the offense though. That's the thing. Russ is still putting up the numbers. It's not like he's throwing for under 50%. He's throwing for almost 70%. He threw for 75% this past week, and the offense is putting up 25 points per game for the Broncos team in general. It's, you still put up 20 points to the Miami Dolphins. You put up 31 against Chicago when you probably could have put up 50. You put up 35 against the Commanders. I don't even know what their week 1 was, but, it's not like they're giving up 30, 50 points and they're only scoring 10. They're still putting up the numbers offensively, but defensively, they're not holding up. Defense wins championships, and where's the defense?
Week 1 was against Vegas.
Yeah, and they put up 15 or 14, I think.
Yeah, so that's another game where they were up 10-13 and even 10-16 at one point, and then they didn't come through. So they had the lead until the last 6 minutes of the game against Jacoby Myers.
It just amazes me how this Broncos team is in a
still
worse
bad.
spot. Worse spot 4 weeks in than they were last year. 2-2 last year at this point, 1-3 this year.
They're still bad, and they worked on the issues that they had issues with last year.
I know.
Where is the problem? Where is you can blame it on Vance Joseph, but I feel like a defensive coordinator isn't going to be the reason it's this bad, especially when you're working with the personnel that you have. I'm not going to say that they're world beaters on that defense, but they're still pretty good. They should be solid.
They were a good defense last year.
They were all right. They weren't bad.
The defense was the reason why they were in a lot of those games last year.
Yeah, you could say that it was a good enough defense. It's not going to be the reason why they're 1-3.
No,
we'll put it that way.
Sure, but last year a lot of those games, even though the offense wasn't doing much, a lot of those low-scoring games, the defense was still putting up their end. Now this year, it's a different story. That's just my take. But you guys got anything else to add? All right, we will move on then. When we come back, we'll have the fan box question for this week was, who is your MVP through the first 4 weeks? We'll get to that after the break.
Here's Edelman broken up, and the pass is no sign yet. Edelman comes down with a football. They're saying it's a catch. This is caught. Diggs! Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable! Swings it way down the field to Watkins. Sammy Watkins for the touchdown!
Welcome back to the Fumblerooski podcast. As Chris Kostic, CJ Medeiros, Adam Wright was with us. He just lost connection. But anywho, we're going to move into our fan box for this week, which was, who is your MVP through the first 4 weeks of the season? Fumblerooski fan box. We post a question filter on our Instagram every Monday, and you can respond with hot takes, questions, and more, and we will discuss it and give you a shout out on our podcast. We'll start out. Ian Mulhern. Also want to apologize if I don't pronounce any last names.
I think it's just Mulhern, but it's all good. We live and learn.
We live and learn. But Ian says Brock Purdy.
I'm not sure I agree. I mean, I'm a huge Brock Purdy fan.
He'll never be
have
MVP,
been since he came onto the scene, but I don't see him being MVP, especially not now.
Yeah,
that's just not
a kid that's going to be MVP. Moving on, Owen Vanslack, Christian McCaffrey. This one, I could see.
I like it, but non-quarterbacks don't MVP anymore. It's literally just most valuable quarterback now.
Yeah, it really is. And the last real MVP candidate, non-quarterback wise, that I can think of is J.J. Watt during that incredible run he went on, where he was second in MVP voting. Or wasn't Aaron Donald in the MVP voting recently too?
Yeah, probably. I believe so, yeah.
Moving on, Isaac Zonana.
Zonana.
Zonana. Isaac Zonana. He says Tua is his MVP through the first 4 weeks.
He's a Dolphins fan, but
Yeah.
I can't disagree.
I just don't
I'm
really
not
see
against it.
I'm not against it, but I just don't see it. Nate Sloat. Josh Allen.
Yeah, especially with that performance against Miami, how Miami was finally put back in their place. So yeah, I could see it. Who knows? Will this finally be the year Allen gets over the hump and gets MVP?
Maybe. I'm pulling up his stats right now. I kind of just wanted to look at his split stats ever since that week 1 loss to the Jets. So we're talking. So since week 1, so he had 3 interceptions, 236 yards, 70% completion percentage. Since then, he has 8 touchdowns, only 1 interception. That's the only turnover. Also add on 2 rushing touchdowns and throw in an extra, we'll say over 700 yards as well. And, he's looking a lot better. I love to bash him for his turnovers, but he really has done a much better job of taking care of the football these last few weeks, ever since that bad Jets loss, I would say.
Yeah, he's definitely bounced back, and I can definitely see why you're saying MVP, Nate. But I will say one thing: this year, I don't even know if there's like a clear-cut front runner.
No, there really
usually is. There usually is every other year, but this year it's I don't know. Something's missing.
Because when you look at Josh Allen's stats, I mean 75% completion percentage if you want to round it up. 1,048 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. It's still solid numbers, but you also got Russell Wilson, who's got the same amount of touchdown passes, few less yards, 2 less interceptions, and he's on a worse team.
That's true.
And that's the sad thing about a lot of these cases is that in all sports really is that you're not gonna be considered an MVP frontrunner if your team isn't a contending team. I saw it.
And honestly, that is something I do agree with, though. I won't lie.
Yeah, and the only other time that I can think of that a player won MVP and their team wasn't a contender wasn't even in football. It was in basketball, and it was Steve Nash back in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, Aaron Wise, Kirk Cousins.
What did we just say? What did we literally just say?
I know.
Your numbers are elite, but you're not winning. You're not MVP. How are you the most valuable player if you can't be the catalyst as to why your team wins? I don't think that's slander. I think it's a genuine question.
It's crazy because I think coming into this week or last week, he was on pace for 6,000 passing yards, and Justin Jefferson was on pace for way over 2,000 receiving yards. So Justin Jefferson, I'm surprised he wasn't set at all in these fan boxes, but
I'm not that shocked if I'm being honest.
I mean, I'm not too shocked.
Wide receivers never win, man. They never win MVP, and especially in this day and age, they probably never will.
No, which is sad to see, especially considering how good of a receiver Jefferson is. But that's the thing is, if you don't have a good quarterback throwing you the ball, you're not going to put up the same stats. Mm-hmm. And Kirk Cousins, for all intents and purposes, isn't Tom Brady, but he's still a good enough quarterback to get Jefferson the ball.
Yeah, and I think I've said this before on the podcast, but we have a lot of new listeners now, so I'm going to say it. There is only one way, in my eyes, that a wide receiver wins MVP. And Chris, tell me if you agree. The only way a wide receiver can win MVP is A, in the same season, they need to break the single season record for receiving yards and receiving touchdowns while doing it with multiple quarterbacks. So they can have a quarterback throwing the ball, but that quarterback would have to go down, and they'd have to do it with a backup. They would need to do it with multiple quarterbacks and break both those records. If you can't check all those boxes, you don't have the snowball's chance in hell of getting MVP. And even if you do all that, the odds are at best 45-55.
Yeah, and even I would say that, and I would agree with that. Another way I would probably say is if the receiver in question were to get the majority of those passing touchdowns. Say you got a quarterback that doesn't have a high passing touchdown total in general, but we'll say like 80% of those passing touchdowns are to a specific guy. So we'll say we'll just throw out a hypothetical number. Say Kirk Cousins throws 29 passing touchdowns, and
that's a lot. Though. You literally said that a lot.
Well, it's for what the receiving record is.
It's like 23.
It's 23. Yeah. So say we have Kirk Cousins throwing 29, maybe 30 touchdown. This is hypothetical, obviously. And Justin Jefferson would have to get 23, 24 on top of the receiving yards record. And we've also, I mean, obviously we've seen receivers get the receiving record, but they've done it with just their one quarterback. Randy Moss broke the receiving record with Tom Brady. The only problem was Tom Brady broke his own passing record, or had his own records to break. Calvin Johnson broke it with Stafford. Cooper Kupp,
but he was kind of on the Lions, so
exactly that too. So the last one that we have here, John Warren says Jared Goff.
No. That's all I gotta say. Look, once again, think Jared Goff's been doing well. Well, not as well as I'd hoped. He has over 1,000 yards, but we'll round up, call it a 70% completion percentage. But 6 touchdowns and 3 picks. I don't know. You're not really wowing me there, Jared.
And looking at like yards per game too, we just looked at Kirk Cousins, who's averaging over 300 yards per game, and Jared Goff has 257 yards per game as well. I've never thought of Jared Goff as an MVP guy, more or less Kirk Cousins or Brock Purdy. But I mean, hey, who knows? They could go on a friggin' tear for all I know. But
they win.
But if you look at Jared Goff compared to some of the other guys that we were just talking about, though, it's yards wise, it's basically the same as Josh Allen, Mahomes, Russell Wilson. Problem is he's got almost just as many turnovers as both Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Russell Wilson, with less passing touchdowns. That would probably be my main argument, but who knows? It's Jared Goff.
Yeah. I don't view him as an MVP personally, but that's just me.
Oh, well. But that being said, that pretty much wraps up everything that we got here. CJ, got anything else left to add?
It's good to be back. That's all. I had to, take some time off because, I'm in college, not like you free people, but no.
Yeah, right.
And if there's any people, any Dean alumnus or Dean students listening, what's been keeping me from doing this? Capstone. If you know, you know.
Yeah, I wouldn't know because I'm not Dean, but
anyways. You know what? Maybe I'll explain it after, maybe.
I think I actually saw it in the archives when we were first getting this. You probably did. Yeah, I actually did see it in the archives. But that'll do it for us here from Fumblerooski. Chris Kostic, CJ Medeiros. We thank you for listening, of course. Adam Wright, obviously with us earlier, but losing his connection. New episode, obviously going to be out right now. And we'll have a new one up next Tuesday, 7:30. Hopefully we get some more great content. Obviously, I mean, looking at the schedule coming up, should be some pretty solid games, I would assume.
I
You
hope.
got, Thursday night, you got Chicago, Washington. Great matchup. Wow. Jacksonville, Buffalo, and London. You got New York and Miami. Lovely. New England, New Orleans. Yeah, the good ones though, Dallas and San Fran, Kansas City, Minnesota. So hopefully we get some good content from those games.
You'd think so.
Yeah, you'd think so, but it's any
This
given
is the
Sunday.
NFL.
It's the NFL. It's any given Sunday. But for that, we say so long. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next week.